Hey everyone, ready for a blast from the past?
I am.
Today we're diving deep into Coldplay's X&Y.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite albums from them.
This album was massive back in 2005, like it was everywhere.
Yeah, it was inescapable, really.
I bet you have some memories tied to these songs.
Oh, absolutely.
And we'll make sure you have even more by the time we're done.
Sounds good.
But before we jump into the music,
Okay.
let's take a quick look at the album art itself.
Oh yeah, it's a cool one.
It's actually a visual representation of Bodo code,
Really?
which is an early form of telegraph communication.
Wow, I never knew that.
Makes you think about how we've always been trying to connect with each other, right?
Yeah, it does.
And speaking of connecting,
Hmm.
we'll have a link to a killer live performance from this era in the end of our deep dive.
Nice.
So stay tuned for that.
Okay, I will.
All right, let's get started with the first track,
Let's do it.
Square One.
Yeah, that opening track, man.
This opener just explodes out of the gate.
It really does, like it just grabs you.
And you can definitely hear the influence of Kraftwerk,
Oh yeah, for sure.
especially in that robotic synth intro.
It's like they're saying, hey, we're here and we're pushing boundaries.
Exactly. And then the guitars and drums kick in, and it's pure energy.
I love that driving energy.
The lyrics, too, they capture that feeling of being on the verge of something big. That mix of excitement and uncertainty.
Like you're ready for anything.
I'm in control, but I don't know where to go.
That's such a relatable line.
I think we've all felt that at some point.
Oh, for sure.
All right, on to track 2, What If.
Ooh, this one's a bit different.
This one feels so different from Square One.
Yeah, much more mellow and introspective.
Almost like a secret whispered after a shout.
I like that description.
It's a beautiful example of Coldplay's ability to shift dynamics
They do that so well.
and create these really intimate moments within a larger, grander soundscape.
It's a nice contrast.
Lyrically, What If is all about the fear of loss in a relationship.
Oh, yeah. It's a heartbreaker.
And it just cuts right to the heart.
That line, what if you should decide that you don't want me there by your side?
Oh, man.
Gets me every time.
It's amazing how a single question can evoke so much emotion.
Absolutely.
This song often gets overshadowed by some of the bigger hits on the album,
I think so too.
but it deserves just as much attention.
It's a gem for sure.
Okay, let's crank up the volume for track 3,
All right, bring it on.
White Shadows.
Love this one.
This one has some serious energy.
You can definitely hear the U2 influence in this one.
Oh yeah, those driving guitars and anthemic choruses.
It's got that epic feel.
But it still has that distinctive Coldplay touch.
Right, it's not just a copycat.
Especially in the way they build tension and release throughout the song.
It's like a roller coaster ride.
And listen to Will Champion's drumming on this track.
Oh, yeah.
It's so powerful.
He really drives the song forward.
It's like a sonic road trip.
And you're just cruising along.
This song always makes me want to roll down the windows and sing along at the top of my lungs.
Me too.
And the lyrics, those themes of escaping the ordinary and seeking something bigger.
It's that feeling of longing for adventure.
Exactly.
It's universal.
Okay, we've arrived at what might be Coldplay's most iconic song,
Oh, here we go.
Fix You.
Yeah, this one gets me every time.
Get the tissues ready.
Seriously.
This song is just a masterpiece of emotional storytelling.
It really is.
That quiet, almost hymn-like organ intro draws you in.
It's so simple but so effective.
And then the music gradually builds layer by layer.
And then it just explodes.
Until it reaches this incredible cathartic climax.
It's pure emotion.
I get goosebumps just thinking about it.
Me too.
And the story behind it is just as powerful.
It's a tough one.
Chris Martin wrote it for Gwyneth Paltrow
Right.
after her father passed away.
It's such a personal song.
You can hear that raw emotion in every note.
In every word.
It's a song that speaks to anyone who's ever experienced loss.
Grief. Or the need for healing.
It's about finding hope in the midst of darkness.
And that message resonates with so many people.
It's become an anthem for resilience.
It's a reminder that even when things feel broken, you can piece yourself back together.
And I think that's why it's still so relevant today.
Yeah, it's timeless.
It's a timeless song that speaks to the human experience in a way that few songs can.
That's truly special.
All right, let's keep this emotional roller coaster going.
Okay.
With track 5, Talk.
Another great one.
This one has a really cool story behind it.
Oh, yeah, what's that?
That main guitar riff
Yeah.
is actually sampled from Kraftwerk's Computer Love.
No way.
With their permission, of course.
Of course.
Can you imagine getting a call from Coldplay asking to sample your music?
Oh, man, that would be amazing.
But what's really amazing is how Coldplay took that sample
Yeah.
and made it their own.
They didn't just copy and paste.
It's still unmistakably Coldplay.
Right, you can totally hear their style.
With those soaring vocals, those layered harmony,
And that build up to the final chorus.
and those last 40 seconds of the song,
Oh, yeah.
they're just epic.
It's like they unleashed all their musical energy.
into one glorious sonic explosion.
Amazing.
It's the kind of song that makes me want to turn it up loud.
And just let the music wash over you.
Exactly. It's a celebration of sound.
It's a testament to their ability to create these immersive, unforgettable sonic experiences.
And now we're at the title track.
X&Y.
This one has a dreamy, almost otherworldly vibe.
It does those swirling synths.
That pulsing beats.
And Chris Martin's vocals are almost ethereal.
They create this hypnotic atmosphere.
Yeah, it's very atmospheric.
And the lyrics really capture that feeling of searching for something.
That sense of longing that's often associated with love and relationships.
You and me are floating on a tidal wave together.
Oh, that's a great line.
It's like they're acknowledging the uncertainty of life.
But choosing to embrace it and ride the wave together.
It's a beautiful sentiment.
It is.
And it perfectly encapsulates the album's overall theme.
Of navigating the unknown.
Of trying to find your place in the world.
It's a universal theme.
And here's a fun fact.
Oh, I love fun facts.
This track almost didn't make it onto the album.
Really?
Can you imagine X&Y without X&Y?
That's crazy to think about.
It's hard to imagine.
Considering it's such a pivotal track.
It really sets the tone for the rest of the album.
I agree.
Okay, let's move on to Speed of Sound.
All right.
The lead single from the album.
This one was everywhere.
This one always reminds me of Clocks.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Maybe because of that driving piano riff.
It's got a similar energy.
You're right, there are definitely structural similarities.
But Speed of Sound feels more expansive.
More optimistic.
It's interesting how Chris Martin was inspired by the birth of his daughter Apple when he wrote this song.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
You can almost hear that sense of wonder and awe in the lyrics.
That feeling of looking at the world through fresh eyes.
Like anything is possible.
Speaking of looking at the world through fresh eyes.
What's next?
Let's talk about track 8, A Message.
Oh, this one's so sweet.
This one always feels so warm and comforting.
It's like a hug in song form.
It's definitely one of the more stripped-back tracks on the album.
Yeah, it's very simple and acoustic.
With those acoustic guitars and gentle vocals.
But it still packs an emotional punch.
Oh yeah, that line.
Which one?
And I've nothing on my own, but I love you, please come home.
Oh yeah, that's a tearjerker.
It's so simple.
Yet so profound.
It's a beautiful reminder of the power of love and connection.
It's a great message.
And it's perfectly placed in the album.
Offering a moment of calm before we dive into the next chapter.
Speaking of which,
here we go.
Let's talk about Low.
Oh yeah, track 9.
This one is such a departure from the rest of the album.
It is. It's got this darker, almost sinister energy.
Driven by that pulsating bass line and those distorted synths.
It's like they're channeling their inner Depeche Mode.
It's so unexpected, but it works so well.
It shows how versatile they are as a band.
It shows their willingness to experiment.
To push their boundaries.
And explore different sonic territories.
They're not afraid to take risks.
And I love how the lyrics touch on themes of isolation and despair.
Yeah, it gets pretty dark.
But there's also a glimmer of hope in there.
A sense that even in the darkest moments, there's always a chance to rise above.
Exactly.
It's a powerful message.
Okay, up next is track 10, the hardest part.
Okay.
This one always makes me think of REM.
Oh, yeah, I can hear that.
Especially with those jangly guitars and that upbeat, almost poppy melody.
It's got that jangly pop vibe.
You're right, there's definitely an REM vibe in there.
But what's interesting is how they juxtapose that upbeat sound.
With lyrics that deal with heartbreak and loss.
It's that bittersweet feeling.
It creates this bittersweet quality that's really compelling.
It's a classic Coldplay move.
It's the kind of song that makes you want to dance and cry at the same time.
Exactly.
It's a perfect example of Coldplay's ability to blend light and shade.
To create music that's both uplifting and emotionally complex.
Right, we're on to track 11's Swallowed in the Sea.
This one's beautiful.
This one feels like a hidden gem.
A song that often gets overlooked but deserves so much love.
I agree, it's one of my favorites on the album.
It's so dreamy and atmospheric.
With those lush harmonies and that haunting piano melody.
It's like a lullaby for the soul.
And the lyrics are so poetic.
Painting these vivid images of love loss and the vastness of the ocean.
It's interesting to note that Chris Martin has said this is one of his personal favorite Coldplay songs.
Oh, wow, really?
It's a song that clearly holds a special place in his heart.
You can hear that sincerity in his vocals.
It's a beautiful, haunting track that really showcases the depths of their songwriting.
It's a gem, for sure.
All right, ready for the final track on the main album.
Hit me with it.
It's time to face Twisted Logic.
Oh yeah, this one's intense.
This one's a powerful closer.
Taking us in a completely different direction.
It's got this dark, almost brooding energy.
Driven by those pounding drums.
And that intense, almost spoken word delivery from Chris Martin.
It's like he's bearing his soul.
And the lyrics explore some pretty heavy themes.
Of power control and human fallibility.
It's a song that really makes you think.
That challenges your assumptions about the world and the people in it.
It's a fitting end to an album that's been full of twists and turns.
Highs and lows.
It leaves you wanting more.
This is a hallmark of a great album, Closer.
Before we wrap up part 1,
Oh, yeah.
we have to mention the bonus track Till Kingdom Come.
That one's special.
This one's got a really special backstory.
What is it?
It was actually written for Johnny Cash.
Wow.
But sadly, he passed away before they could record it together.
Oh, that's so sad.
Did you imagine that collaboration?
Oh, man. It would have been incredible.
What a missed opportunity.
But the song itself is a beautiful tribute to Cash's legacy.
It's a simple acoustic ballad.
Full of heart and soul.
You can almost hear Johnny Cash's voice in the melody.
It's like he's there in spirit.
It's a song that speaks to the power of music to transcend time and connect generations.
It's a perfect way to end part 1.
And that's a perfect note to end part 1 on.
I agree.
We'll be back for part 2.
Can't wait.
Where we'll delve deeper into the influences and creative processes that shaped this iconic album.
That sounds fascinating.
See you soon.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Coldplay's X&Y.
I'm ready to keep going.
We spent the last part listening closely to each track.
Yeah, it was quite the journey.
Now let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
And talk about the creative forces that went into making this album such a phenomenon.
I'm fascinated by that stuff. Like, what were some of the influences that shaped the sound of this record?
Well, one thing that immediately jumps out is the album's sonic landscape.
Yeah, it's really expensive.
They were clearly experimenting with blending their core sound with electronic elements.
More so than they ever had before.
Exactly. Remember that robotic synth intro in Square One we talked about?
Oh yeah, it was so cool.
That was a direct nod to the electronic music pioneers, Kraftwerk.
A band Coldplay is always admired.
Yeah, they've mentioned them in interviews.
That intro really sets the tone for the whole album. You immediately know you're in for something different.
It's like they're saying, buckle up, this is going to be a ride.
Exactly.
And it's not just Kraftwerk. You can hear echoes of U2, particularly in songs like White Shadows.
Oh yeah, those soaring guitars and anthemic choruses.
That make you want to reach for the sky.
I hear that those big open sounds definitely create a feeling of vastness and possibility.
It's almost like you're transported to another world.
And there's even a touch of REM's jangle pop influence in The Hardest Part.
Oh yeah, I love that song.
That jangly guitar sound paired with the melancholic lyrics creates this bittersweet feeling that's so compelling.
It's classic Coldplay.
It's like they took all these diverse influences and blended them into something uniquely Coldplay.
They were never afraid to wear their influences on their sleeve, but they always managed to make it their own.
Speaking of making it their own, let's talk about the emotional depth of this album.
Oh yeah, it's a deeply personal record.
Chris Martin's songwriting during this period was so personal and vulnerable.
It's like he's pouring his heart out in every song.
Fix You is the perfect example of that.
Such a powerful song.
Knowing that he wrote it for Gwyneth Paltrow while she was grieving the loss of her father.
Yeah, it adds another layer of meaning to an already incredibly powerful song.
It's a testament to the power of music to heal and console.
Absolutely. And it's not just fix you songs like What If and Swallowed in the Sea also explore themes of love, loss, and uncertainty with such raw honesty.
They weren't afraid to delve into those complex human emotions, which is something I think resonates with listeners even years later.
Music has a way of tapping into those universal feelings.
Musically, they took some risks on this album too.
Like what?
Sampling Kraftwerk on Talk.
Oh, yeah, that was a bold move.
And turning it into this driving rock anthem.
It paid off, though.
That song became one of their biggest hits.
And it showed that they weren't content to stay in one lane.
They were willing to experiment and evolve their sound.
Always pushing boundaries.
And who could forget Low?
That was a curveball.
That dark, almost industrial vibe was such a departure from their usual sound.
It's almost as if they were channeling their inner Depeche Mode.
But that's what makes X&Y so compelling. It keeps you guessing.
It's an album that rewards repeat listens.
You always discover something new, some subtle detail you might have missed before.
It's full of those little surprises.
You know what else is full of subtle details?
What's that?
The album art.
Oh, yeah, it's iconic.
Remember how we talked about it being a visual representation of Bodo code?
Yeah, that early form of telegraph communication.
I love that it's like a secret code waiting to be deciphered.
It adds another layer of meaning to the album's themes of communication and connection.
And it shows their attention to detail and their dedication to creating a complete artistic experience.
They really went all out.
And when you think about the lyrics with all those references to searching, questioning, and trying to make sense of the world,
It all ties together beautifully.
it's like they're inviting us to join them on this journey of discovery.
And what a journey it is.
X&Y is an album that has aged incredibly well.
It sounds as fresh today as it did back in 2005.
It's a testament to their songwriting, their musicianship,
And their ability to create music that transcends trends and connects with people on a deep emotional level.
Absolutely. It's a classic for a reason. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've spent the last two parts exploring the sounds and stories behind Coldplay's X&Y.
It's been quite a journey.
Now, in this final part,
Okay.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the lasting impact of this album.
Yeah, it's interesting to consider its place in music history.
It really is. S&Y wasn't just a collection of great songs. It really captured a particular moment in time.
Both for Coldplay as a band and for the music world as a whole.
What do you think made it such a defining moment?
Well, think back to 2005.
Okay,
The music industry was in a state of flux.
it was changing rapidly.
Digital downloads were changing how we consume music. Streaming services were on the horizon, and rock music, especially that anthemic stadium-filling kind, was having a resurgence in popularity.
Right. Bands like U2 Keen and Snow Patrol were all over the radio.
That's
It was a good time for rock music.
And X&Y arrived right in the midst of that becoming a global phenomenon.
It really did.
It wasn't just about catchy hooks. It was about tapping into a feeling, a sense of searching and yearning that resonated with so many people.
It definitely felt like the soundtrack of a generation.
It did.
But beyond that, how do you think it influenced other artists?
X&Y proved that you could combine introspective lyrics with these massive arena-ready soundscapes and achieve both critical and commercial success.
Yeah, it's a tough balance to strike.
It gave other bands permission to experiment with textures, dynamics, and that touch of melodrama that Coldplay does so well.
Yeah, those soaring builds in songs like Fix You and Talk.
They definitely raised the bar for emotional intensity.
And it wasn't just the music,
What else?
the album art.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
With that Bodo code design,
It was so unique,
it sparked a trend of artists incorporating symbolism and hidden messages into their visuals.
turning album art into a puzzle to be solved.
Exactly.
It became more than just a cover.
It also seemed like a turning point for Coldplay in terms of their global reach.
Oh, absolutely.
They went from playing clubs to stadiums practically overnight.
X&Y catapulted them to superstardom, but more importantly, it paved the way for their later albums.
Where they continued to explore those electronic and experimental sounds.
Exactly. It's like X&Y was a bridge between their earlier, more acoustic-driven work and the bolder, more ambitious sounds of their later albums.
Looking back, do you think X&Y has stood the test of time?
Absolutely.
I think so too.
The themes it explores, love loss, the search for meaning, those are timeless, and the music itself still feels fresh and relevant today.
I think it holds a special place in many people's heart.
It does.
It evokes those coming-of-age memories, those first loves, those moments of feeling lost and trying to find your place in the world.
Music has this incredible power to transport us back to those formative experiences, and X&Y certainly does that for a lot of people.
It's a reminder that even when we feel alone in our struggles, there's always a song, a piece of art that can make us feel understood and connected.
And that's the beauty of music, isn't it?
It is.
It has the ability to bridge gaps and create a shared experience.
Well, I think that perfectly sums up the enduring legacy of X&Y. It's an album that continues to connect with people on a deep emotional level, and its impact on both Coldplay's career and the music world is undeniable.
I couldn't agree more.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure revisiting this iconic album and exploring its lasting resonance. And for all of you listening, remember to keep exploring, keep listening, and keep those memories alive.
Here, here.
We'll see you on our next deep dive.